Welcome. Welcome to my video series on the heroine's journey. It's time to find your happiness. This particular video is going to talk to you, I am going to talk to you about how your reality changes as a result of taking a leap. I wonder if you have heard about paradigms. Paradigms is are particular viewpoints, a way of thinking about something, and we tend to get stuck in them. It's called paradigm paralysis. We can't see our way to looking at it differently. So some examples of this in the watch world, always the Swiss watchmakers were the go-to people for buying a watch. You need to wind it. It was or battery operated. There was a certain way to make a watch until a big watch conference when the Japanese watchmakers came with their new invention, the digital watch. And everybody thought, that's not how to make a watch. That'll never work. And of course, we all have digital watches. And then there's the Xerox. First, the people who invented the Xerox machine brought it to a business to show them, to try that out, and they were sent away. That will never do anything. That will never work. It happened when the talking pictures movies were invented. There's some famous old director or producer, when they first came out, said, no one will ever want to come to a movie where people talk. And I have a colleague who was able to see education happen differently. So often they talk about people who can see new paradigms are the people who are on the fringes of the old paradigms. Because when you're right in it, it's hard for you to see another way of doing something, another way of viewing it. So she was on the fringes of her children's education. And because of the pandemic, she could see that her son's needs weren't being met with the teachers that they had available because of staff shortages and all the things that were going on during the pandemic and still are. And so she began to research other ways that her son could get particularly the math education that he needed. And because she also was connected with another company that had come up with a way of, was called I Spy. Yeah, so here I am not remembering the name of that company, but it was a way of sorting through a lot of information with photographs to be able to get to the photograph that you needed. So she began to think, oh, well, there must be, if I'm having issues with finding different ways, and I've done a lot of research, and she did find the perfect course, online course for her son. There must be other parents going through the same thing, which led her and her colleagues who were attached to this other I Spy media photograph company to put together a new company called I Spy Education, where people can now go in and sort through whatever education needs you're trying to fill and all the different ways that that could be met. She was able to see a whole different way of doing education. Doesn't have to be in a building with classrooms and students sitting behind desks. So she was able to see another paradigm. Well, what happens with us when we answer a call and we cross the threshold and we get to the other side, everything changes. our paradigms change. It's like you've turned the kaleidoscope and you see things differently. So remember how we talked about being in your comfort zone, thinking about the change and all the thoughts that come up. I will never make money if I leave and go out on my own. I will never get ahead if I go into that company or go out on my own. That place isn't right for me. All those things that your threshold guardians, people around you say as though they're truth, at that side of the threshold, you can't possibly know what is real and what's going to happen or not, because you haven't gotten to that side. So you don't know what you don't know. Even though your brain, or a part of your brain, will try to tell you that you do know. You don't, you can't possibly. So I talked before about the example of me leaving my corporate job had been there for 12 years and decided I'm going to be a facilitator, have my own company. I left, I got to the other side of the threshold. And it wasn't at all what I thought. So there I was thinking, I'm going to be a facilitator, a neutral facilitator. I'm going to help people with strategic planning. I'm going to help them work through their agenda, whatever it is they're wanting to do as a group. I will facilitate the process. I will be a process expert. And then what kept happening to me on that side of the threshold was I would be with a group and there was apparently people in the group that weren't speaking to other people in the group. Or we'd be working through something in another group and somebody would burst into tears and leave the room. Or I'd be working with the person in charge of putting together the meeting and she'd say, you know, there'll be certain people that won't come because they just don't want to be in the same room with X, Y, and Z. And so what I quickly came to realize that even though when I talked with the people who were arranging for the meeting ahead of time about planning the meeting, and I would say, anything I need to know, any issues? No. But then as we got into the topics we needed to discuss, yeah, there were issues. There was underlying conflict, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I had to go get trained, and I went and took courses in conflict and mediation and became a divorce mediator for a while and helped mediate for the Postal Service. And I jumped fully on my road of adventure, into the conflict world, which if you had asked me on the other side of the threshold before I did my leap and left my corporation, oh, Susanna, what about, are you going to help people with conflict? I would say, no way, never. I could never help people with conflict. I would have said, I know nothing about conflict. My family was one of those families that didn't do conflict. If ever anybody was unhappy, they'd just go in their room and shut the door and nobody would ever talk about it. And of course, the only way you get through conflict is to talk about it. So my main point here is that things look different. They are different. You will see things differently once you make that leap. So if you think you can be pre-leap and know, my message is You don't know. You do not know. So don't get too wound up in all those things that's coming up inside of you, mostly coming from the threshold guardians, because they certainly don't know. Things will change. And always the challenges that you get on the road of adventure, answering your call. You get the call because you need to grow and develop and evolve. And so you will meet things that will do that for you. And you want that. That's again what makes you great. But you can't predict it. It's unknown, unexpected, and out of your control. But you will react, you will work with it, and it will grow you. So I used the example before of landing on the road, and I had published my book, and that was my big leap, publishing it, putting it out into the world, my baby. And then it was, but now what do I do? Well, that's so often the situation. And maybe you're there right now. Maybe you did get all your courage together and you did plot out how you were going to leap, and you decided maybe either to do it in small steps or just to do it in one fell swoop. And you were in that intermediate flying through the air stage, but now you've landed maybe, and you're on the road of adventure. Maybe you're in a new company. Maybe you've taken a promotion. Maybe you've just started a new relationship. Maybe you're finally writing the book that you knew was inside of you and you have to write it. Maybe you're finally going back to school or learning something, traveling somewhere. You have responded to a call and you've landed and you're on the road of adventure. And again, now what? So you're going to be hearing from me about what to do about the now what, because there are tools for navigating the road. I can't help with the unpredictability. I don't know the lessons that you need to learn that are going to be important on your journey, that are going to help you to grow. But I can tell you that I have developed tools to help you navigate, to help give you ideas of what might be next or what your priority could be. And all these tools are about tapping into your intuition and into your wise inner knowing. And so some of them can be sort of counter to what you would think. It's not about sketching out a plan using your finely tuned logical left brain. It's a lot of right-brained activity that puts you in the right space to hear what your inner voice is telling you would be a good thing to do. So I will be with you. We're going to continue on, Heroine. I really appreciate your being with me and doing this. You are courageous and strong. I know this about you. And always remember, you are a heroine.